All right, good morning. So here we are back again for another reading session of our book titled One Crazy Summer. Remember, this is by Rita Williams Garcia. Okay. It's a story about three girls in 1968 who go to Oakland, California to visit their mother who had abandoned them as young children. Okay. As when we left off, the girl's mother, whose name is Cecile, and that's the name they call her by because she abandoned them, and at least that's what we know at this point. They're with Cecile, and they're on a bus, and they're on the way to Cecile's house in Oakland, California, after just getting off the bus. Okay. Now, remember, we are thinking about some themes while we read this story, themes of like abandonment and oppression, community, family, freedom, perseverance. Think of how these themes are shown throughout the story. Okay. Something else to consider as I read chapter 4 is to think about Big Ma's response to the question of where Cecile lives. Why do you think Big Ma responds how she does to the girls? And do you think she should have responded that way? And has your opinion of Cecile changed of why she left? Okay, so has your opinion of why Cecile left changed? So as I read this chapter, I want you to think about that. This chapter is titled Green Stucco House. Here we go. Big Ma and Cecile lived on the street. Oh, gosh, it's early, guys. Let me try that one more time. Okay? Big Ma said Cecile lived on the street. The park bench was her bed. She lived in a hole in the wall. You can't say stuff like that to a kid asking about her mother when it's snowing outside or pouring down rain. You can't say, your mother lives on a street, in a hole in the wall, sleeping on park benches, next to winos. I didn't understand expressions when I was 6. That there were strings of words spoken so often, the string fell slack. Your mother lives on the street, in a hole in the wall, sleeping on park benches next to winos, sounded exactly as Big Ma said it. When you're 6, you picture your mother living on black and gray tar full of potholes, broken glass, skid marks, and blackened gum. All of that overrun by cars, buses, and trucks. You squeeze your brain one way, your imagination the other way, and you see your mother peeking out the holes of crumbling abandoned buildings to stay dry when it snowed or rained. You see your mother sleeping on splintery park benches, stained with pigeon poop and a smelly, toothless wino sleeping next to her. When you're 6, you wonder why your mother would rather live on the street, in a hole in the wall, and sleep on park benches next to winos than live with you. Even though I'd finally figured out these were expressions and not the plain, factual truth, I expected Cecile Johnson to, at the very least, be bad off, to be one of those Negroes living in poverty, as the news often put it. I expected I'd have to nudge Vanetta and Fern into knowing better when they asked for all the things we had at home, like Mr. Bubble Bath, extra helpings of chicken and ham, or banana pudding on Sundays. When Cecile slowed her man-sized steps, tore off her big hat, her scarf, and her dark glasses, we knew we had arrived. We followed her into the yard and down the walkway. I stared at her 8 thick braids of unpressed hair, pencils shoved in the plate above her ear. Then I joined my sisters, taking in the shock of her house and yard, the place where she lived. "This is your house?" Vanetta asked. She was the first to put our amazement into words. To begin with, the house was covered in peaks of hard green frosting. Stucco, Cecile called it. She said she applied the stucco herself. The green prickly house was surrounded by a dried out but neatly trimmed lawn. To one side of the house was a rectangular concrete slab with a roof over it. A carport, she said. Just no car. On the other side, a baby palm tree sloped toward the sun. That palm tree was out of place as the stucco. That's how I could be sure it was Cecile's home. All right. Even though Cecile said the house was hers and not to worry about how she got it, that wasn't enough to suit Vanetta. Big Ma said... I kicked her before she could go further. She knew better than to repeat Big Ma's words. And if she didn't, that kick should have smarted her into knowing better. Whether Cecile heard Vanetta starting to insult her, or if she saw me kick her second child, she didn't let on. She just said, "Come on," and put the key in the door. We walked inside and looked around. I expected to see writing on the walls, wavy, colored hippie writing all over, since she was free to do what she wanted in her own house. I expected to read strings and strings of words tapped from her pencil onto the walls. But the walls in Cecile's house were clean, painted a yellow beige, and had no writing. Still, flashes of memories popped before me. Flashes of Cecile writing on the walls and on boxes. Flashes of paint smells. Papa painting over her pencil marks. Flashes of loud Papa and Cecile angry talking. When they'd asked about it, Uncle Darnell had said they fought over Cecile writing on walls all the time. The room's in the back, bathroom across the hall. The day bed rolls out. That should be enough for y'all. Fern folded her arms, holding Miss Patty Cake by a tuft of her patchy yellow hair. We need night beds. We sleep at night. I could tell Cecile didn't know whether to be annoyed or amused. She looked at all of us wondering not only who we were, but what we were. Fern didn't notice the scrutiny. She turned to me. I don't nap in the daytime. I'm in second grade. Never to be outdone, Vanetta said. I'm in the fourth grade. Cecile said, I didn't ask for all that. As I expected, Vanetta's feelings got hurt because she was always sticking herself on stage for everyone to see her. Still, Vanetta hadn't been kicked enough. She whirled around in the living room like a dance recital fairy, whirled around on her heels, taking in the clean walls, the curtains, a beat-up sofa, a few stacks of books, and not much else landed, and said, Where's the TV and everything else? Vanetta was too far from me to nudge or kick. Cecile dropped Fern's bag on the floor and started mothering. I didn't send for you. Didn't want you in the first place. Should have gone to Mexico to get rid of you when I had the chance. It didn't seem like she was talking to us. She didn't even look at Vanetta or Fern and me. She kept talking, muttering about Mexico, throwing her Mata Hari disguise on the beat-up sofa. Our mother wore pencils in her hair, dressed like a secret agent, had a stickly, prickly house, a palm tree when no one else had one, and clean, painted walls instead of the writing I had remembered. Now I got why our mother ran away. Our mother was crazy. Come on, I said. Let's see the room. Put our stuff away. Vanetta and Fern raced down the hall, pushing to be first. Cecile yelled after them, but they were too excited to hear her. I came in after them. A bed with a brass headboard and arm rails, a blue cover, a dresser, a gooseneck floor lamp with a glass bowl in the shape of a half moon. It was more furniture than she had in the living room. We cannot fit on this one bed, Vanetta said. I raised up the blue cover and found the other bed underneath. Come on, help me pull it out. We all latched on and pulled. The bed rolled out into a stair step of one bed below and another above. I said, she should have helped us. Surely she should have, Fern said. I sleep on top, Vanetta called. No, I sleep on top. Fern did her best Rocky the Flying Squirrel leap, arms outstretched to belly onto the bed. Vanetta followed, and they rapped into wrestling. I let them. They hadn't had a good fight all day. After 6.5 hours on the plane and keeping up with Cecile, I figured they could use some recreation. They took turns getting the best of each other, but just before crying time set in, I pulled one off the other and said, You both sleep on top. There's enough room. Why do you get the bed all to yourself? Vanetta cried. You're not that big. You don't need a bed all to yourself. I was big enough to give up a full view of the world on the 727 and big enough to outsmart my sisters at every turn. You can come down here with me, I said, scooting over so I wasn't claiming the whole bed. I don't care. I'm staying on top, Vanetta said. Me too, said Fern. We looked around in silence at the walls, the dresser, the gooseneck floor lamp with its half-moon glass bowl. It certainly wasn't much. Vanetta wanted to say something. She had that look. Spit it out, Vanetta, I said. Yeah, spit it, Fern said. Vanetta cut her eyes toward Fern. To me, she said, Delphine, what do we have to do with Mexico? That one had also thrown me when Cecile said it. Should have gone to Mexico to get rid of you when I had the chance. I didn't rightfully know what that meant, but I was all my sisters had, so I said, that's where women go, who don't want their babies. But why Mexico? And not Queens, Fern asked. Because Queens is too close, I said, as if I knew. Then I added, showing all of my age and my wisdom. They buy babies down in Mexico for rich people. They both said, oh. I didn't want to say Big Ma was right. Cecile was no kind of mother. Cecile didn't want us. Cecile was crazy. I didn't have to. Okay, so that brings us to the end of chapter 4. Okay. Again, I want you to think about, has your opinion of why Cecile left changed? Do you think Cecile is crazy, or do you think she's acting how she's acting for another reason? Things to consider as we go forward. The next chapter, chapter 5, is titled Mean Lady Ming. Okay. By the end of this chapter, I want you to think about, how do the girls feel about Oakland at this point? Do they want to go home to New York? Do they like it there? Are they learning new things that they didn't know before? Okay. Are you maybe learning something new? Okay, here we go. Chapter 5, Mean Lady Ming. This is page 30 in my book, if anyone is trying to follow along and has a copy of the book. We stood as one, looking up at her. Me in the front, Vanetta and Fern at my sides. She was tall and broad-shouldered, where Pa was just tall. As hungry as I was, all I could think was, they made you dance with a boy in the 6th grade, that I would never look right dancing with a boy, and for that, I had Cecile to thank. I spoke first. We're hungry. As usual, my sister's voices followed on top of mine. Vanetta said, what's for supper? Then Fern, hungry, hungry. She rubbed her belly. We made a picture, us looking up at her and her looking down at us. In the animal kingdom, the mother bird brings back all she's gathered for the day and drops it into the open mouths of each bird, squawking to be fed. Cecile looked at us like it didn't occur to her that we would be hungry, and she'd have to do what mothers do, feed their young. I'm no big man in the kitchen, but I would have opened a can of beans and fried up some franks. I can bake a chicken and boil potatoes. I would have never let my long-gone daughters travel nearly 3,000 miles without turning on the stove. She said, what do you want from me? Supper, I answered. It's past 8 o'clock. We haven't had real food since breakfast with Big Ma and Papa. I kept going. That was, I glanced at my wrist, 9 hours and 12 minutes ago. Vanetta next. Airline food don't count. Fern last. Surely don't. She was still looking down on us as if we'd thrown a monkey wrench into her quiet Tuesday evening. Then she spoke. Where's the money your father gave you? I crossed my arms. There was no way she was getting our money. That money is for Disneyland, I told her, to go on all the rides and meet Tinkerbell. That was the first time we heard Cecile laugh, and she laughed like the crazy mother she was turning out to be. Is Tinkerbell going to feed you? She was still laughing. We didn't think she was funny. We said nothing rather than talk back and get slapped. Look, she said, if you want to eat, hand over the money. I stared her down, something I never try with Big Ma. Cecile didn't seem to care. She said, fine. I got plenty of air sandwiches here. Go on back to the room, open your mouths, and catch one. The stare down ended right there. I unlaced my right tennis shoe, wriggled my foot out, and removed the mound of 10s and 20s Pa had given me. Cecile didn't care that the money had been baking under my foot since we left Brooklyn. She took the money, unfolded, and counted the bills. then stuffed them in her pants pocket, except for a $10 bill, which she held out to me. Go around the corner to Ming's. Order a large shrimp lo mein. She counted our heads as if she didn't know how many of us she'd had. 4 egg rolls and a big bottle of Pepsi. Vanetta and Fern squealed for the shrimp and Pepsi, forgetting that this was wrong. Our mother should have cooked real food for us. At the very least, baked a chicken, made franks with beans. Fruit punch, I said. Big Ma don't allow us to have strong drinks. Cecile let out a single whoop of laughter. Vanetta and Fern were too excited about having takeout to see that our mother was still crazy. I said, we have to call Pa, let him know we've arrived. They chimed in, safe and sound, on the ground. Cecile said, phone's next to Ming's. You mean you don't have a phone? Vanetta asked. Cecile said, I don't have no one to call, and I don't want no one calling me. But the Cecile had a phone was not my main worry. We have to go out after 8 to call Pa and get food. Aren't you coming with us? Ming's is a couple blocks down Magnolia. Around the corner, she pointed the direction. Phone booth is right there. When we were barely out the door, she added, and tell Ming to give you 4 plates, 4 forks, 4 napkins, and 4 paper cups. No sense dirtying dishes, and you're not coming inside my kitchen. We all looked at one another and thought the same thing. Crazy. I led the way in the direction Cecile pointed. Down the walk, past the slumping palm tree, and made a right turn. Vanetta and Fern, as usual, nipped the heels of my tennis shoes. It wasn't dark at all, but it wasn't high daylight either. Kids of all ages still ran around playing in yards and riding bikes on the street. I bet kids ran around and played out here all year long, and not only in the summer. We usually went to the summer camp at the Y or drove down to Alabama and Papa's Wildcat. We came upon some kids playing freeze tag. They jumped from lively, wiggly worms to frozen statues just as we neared their yard. We felt the smirks of the gaping statues on us. Vanetta smiled, welcoming their interest in us. She was scouting out new friends to be with for the next 28 days. I let her lag a step or two behind to wink and smile at them. You can't stop Vanetta from chasing after friends. I kept walking, Fern sticking close to me. Vanetta skipped until she caught up. One thing was for sure, these blocks might have been long like the blocks on Herkimer Street, but we were far from Brooklyn. I didn't know where any of these streets led, but I walked down Magnolia like I knew where I was going. I couldn't help but notice that no one yard had a palm tree, not one, or stucco. No one house was painted that crazy green color. I was thinking this when behind us crept a rumbling against concrete, like a barrel rolling. The rolling broken by the cracks in the sidewalk. I turned. A voice yelled, "Gangway!" We tried to jump aside, but the 3 of us jumping all together only got us so far. A boy on top of a wooden board, this flying T with tricycle wheels in the back, rumbled by and managed to clip me good. "Hey, watch out!" I called after him, shaking my fist. He only stopped at the corner to pick up his flying T, carry it across the street, and lay it back down on the sidewalk. "Sorry," he yelled without turning around. Then he gave it a running push and jumped on it, eventually lying, stomach down, his arms outstretched as he held on to both ends of the T. "What was that?" Vanetta asked. "Some stupid boy," I said. "Come on, y'all." I had to pull Vanetta's chin away from the direction of the boy on the flying T. She kept looking even after he was long gone. Ming's was where Cecile said it was, around the corner and a couple of blocks down. There was a big sign, Ming's, and underneath it, red neon characters that looked like fighting men waving swords. The telephone booth was also where Cecile said it would be, right next to Ming's. I planned on calling Pa before getting the food, but the booth was already occupied by a light-skinned guy with a big, floppy afro. He was turned sideways, but I could see his profile, his beakish nose, the way he pushed his head this way and that, suspiciously, while he talked. We stood with our arms folded, waiting for him to finish. He looked like a fugitive from justice. I could spot one when I saw one. I love a good crime story, especially the FBI crime shows come on late, and I sneak to catch whatever Big Ma falls asleep watching. That's how this guy looked, like he was calling his ma to see if the coast was clear to come home without the mob or the coppers on his tail. He saw us standing with our arms folded and turned his back to us. I got it. He had a lot of dimes and planned to use each one. We went inside Ming's. We were barely in the restaurant, which wasn't a restaurant, just a counter with a kitchen on the far side and two small tables with benches on our side. The Chinese behind the counter said, "No free egg rolls. No more free egg rolls." She waved her hands like, "Shoo, stray cat." I didn't know how to answer. I didn't ask for any free egg rolls, but we were the only ones inside Ming's, and she was staring straight at me. Vanetta said, "We don't want free egg rolls." Fern piped in, "We want shrimp lo mein and Pepsi." Vanetta said, "And 4 plates, 4 forks, 4 napkins, and 4 cups." "And 4 egg rolls," Fern said. "All for money, not for free," said Vanetta. "Finally," I said, "it's takeout. To go." I uncurled a $10 bill to show her. Usually, I am Johnny on the spot, speaking up for my sisters and me. But this time, I went blank for no reason. I could think of it was nice to have Vanetta and Fern jump right in. The lady shouted in Chinese to the back of the kitchen. She sounded meaner than when she said, "No free egg rolls." I decided that just like Cecile was crazy, the Chinese lady was mean. Mean Lady Ming. She nodded to us and said, "Okay, sit." We sat down and waited. Mean Lady Ming kept talking. "Everybody poor, everybody hungry. I give free egg roll. Feel sorry. Then everyone come for free egg roll." She muttered on like Cecile did and looked mean and tired like Big Ma looked on washboard days. While I was sitting with my sisters, I made up my mind about Oakland. There was nothing and no one in all of Oakland to like. I would get on a plane and fly back to New York if Big Ma showed up, wanting her grandbabies. I wouldn't even tell Cecile. Thanks for the visit. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 5. So remember, consider how the girls are feeling about Oakland at this point in time. Sure seems like Delphine is just about had enough. Vanetta is trying to make some friends, and Fern is really, well, she's acting like a really young girl, right? She's just kind of going along with what's happening. Okay, so that's going to end our reading for today. I will be back with another reading next week, which would be Monday. What's the date on that? I'm not even sure, guys. We should be getting a little more structure next week as we move forward, just so everybody knows that watches this. And okay, guys, have a great day. Thanks for tuning in.